Are there any other considerations for like color palette, part count distribution? You talked about the themes, right? Where it's like we get a castle theme,
Yep.
we're done with the castle. Is there on Lego Masters, the judges they say the story, the color palette, right? Those are two things that commonly come up. Is that something you guys are looking at too?
No, we don't. I mean, it's very clearly like, I sometimes will say that this program's democratic to a fault, and that it's like the highest voted stuff is what goes forward. And that might not necessarily be what most people think they agree with, even though that's what the public's telling us they want. Um, we don't go off of those things, but those are the things that we provide a lot of feedback for when we're providing feedback on models.
Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. I am your solo host to start off the new year, Grinch. And today we are diving into the Bricklink Designer Program with its senior design manager, Alex Kastelic. We'll break down how designs are selected, what challenges fan creators face, and what really happens behind the scenes as these builds make their journey from digital models into limited run official Lego sets. But before we do that, of course, we've got a banter about some bricks. And West is obviously not here today. As I mentioned, I am soloing. He is traveling back from his family vacation for the holidays. So safe travels to West. But I had a good holiday, as you can tell by my really messy background. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got my Lego collection behind me in boxes and all of its glory. Still working on unpacking that. I have not done a lot of building because of that, because it takes a lot of work to move this giant collection. But I did get the Guardian Dragon for Christmas. I've got a wonderful wife who listens to the show and heard me talking about it on our last episode in the awards show, and decided to give it to me as a gift. So that was very, very nice. West is doing well. He did want me to mention that he is very excited about some of the January 1st sets. The specifically some pieces from January 1st with the 3 long and 4 long new cheese slope pieces. He was very excited about those. I believe he actually built the new Speed Champions DeLorean set and really enjoyed it. So he went out on January 1st to a local Bricks and Minifigures to pick up some sets. I actually went to a official Lego retail store to pick up some sets. When I go on releases, which I've gone on Black Friday, I've gone on January 1st before, I've gone other times, throughout the years, and I've always gone like, maybe 20, 30 minutes beforehand. And that's what I did today, or not today, but on January 1st. And I actually, I'm in a new area, so I've got a new Lego store. I went to the mall, I got in line. Well, I thought I got in line. There was a small line in front, and then there was another shop stall. So they didn't want people lining up in front of that. So they twisted the line kind of across where those little, middle carts are. So a couple people over there. So I get in line there, and the person goes, actually, the lines continues over there. And he points back, and somebody's waving. I'm like, oh, crap. Okay. So I go, and I'm like thinking I'm just going to turn the corner and see like 5 people in line. I walk down, I turn the corner, and the line is wrapped all the way down, like around the food court and back. And there was probably 200 people in line based off my estimates on January 1st for January 1 releases. So I walked back to the end of the line, kind of took it all in for a moment, had my wife and daughter with me, my 11-month-old daughter, and decided we're just going to take a gamble and get these gift with purchases online, because they said they were still available. So I didn't want to make the 11-month-old wait in that line for what would have been probably an hour after open or two, because they're going to regulate. Then they're not just going to let 200 people in the Lego store out at once. So we decided to get out of the line. I took my shot online, and I got my notification that it shipped with all the gift with purchases. So I was able to do that for I picked up the Stranger Things house as well as the newest modular. So that was my January 1st story. Otherwise, I will be very busy in the coming weeks getting the Lego room all set up. I was working on getting the actual Lego bins and parts set up um, just before recording this episode. So that's off to a roaring start. I've got a really nice little build room. I will probably do an updated collection tour here when I get all settled to show off the collection and the new build room, of course. But that is the little bit of a longer intro today. Let's head over to some exciting Lego news. Exciting Lego news. So the intro was longer because there's really not a ton of news. Obviously, we could talk all about Jan 1st releases, which we have been over the past few weeks. But really, the biggest thing that I saw as far as news goes that's noteworthy is the poly bags that were just recently revealed for March, I believe. These poly bags are for various themes, and there are some interesting ones here, actually. There is a Technic one, a Creator 3-in-1, City, Disney, Friends. And then the one that I really liked was there was a cool Batman one. And then I really liked the Harry Potter one, actually, because it has a red bird in it. It also has a sword of Gryffindor. So it's just kind of an interesting little parts pack, to say the least. And then there was the Spider-Man versus Anti-Venom heist. And it's got the Anti-Venom's face, like minifig head, on one of those little dreams aliens bodies. So that one's just that was a little weird, a little different. 31 pieces. These are typically in that $5 range. So that'll be interesting. It just kind of looks so silly. So yeah, interesting to say the least. But other than that, really, it was just a seasonal spring wreath that was revealed. And that just kind of looks like similar to like how they've done like a holiday Christmas wreath. This is a spring one, so a little bit more spring flowers, pastel colors for those flowers, a little bow, and it's kind of Easter theme. So really that's it as far as reveals go. Of course, we got January 1st sets that came out, which is definitely noteworthy. And I've seen a lot of people are really enjoying those so far. So that all being said, let's go ahead and welcome our guest onto the show and head over to today's topic. Today's topic. In today's episode, we are diving into the world of artfully crafted small batch Lego sets with Alex Kastelic, the Bricklink Design Program lead. And he's part of the team that actually turns these AFOL passion projects into limited run official Lego sets through Bricklink Designer Program. Welcome to the show, Alex. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me today.
You are very welcome. We met at Brickworld Chicago, and I got a little bit of a glimpse of your Bricklink design program conversation that you had there, and was like, this would be an excellent episode. And we had a longtime fan of the show there, Phil, who was like, hey, you gotta get Alex on. So he introduced us, and it's been a long time coming because we've had some scheduling issues over time, but like all good, good bottle of wine, it ages, ages with time. So I've been really looking forward to this conversation. So welcome to the show.
Well, happy to be here, and it was, for anyone that hasn't been to a convention, it's a great place to make introductions and meet people in the community like this. It's always one of my favorite things. 'Cause I'm getting ready to go to Australia in a couple weeks here
Oh,
for
nice.
Brickvention. And then obviously we'll be at Chicago again this year for Brick World. But yeah, highly encourage it. It's a great way to meet people and to just kind of have conversations that you normally might not get to have online.
Mhm. Yeah, I got my, registration all set up for Chicago, so I will be there too, and, looking forward to it. But, Alex, quick question about you before we
Mhm.
dive, into the world of Bricklink Designer Program. I assume you're an AFOL. We ask all of our guests, how did you become an AFOL? What is your Lego journey?
Outside of childhood, obviously I grew up with Lego, much like most everyone else that is and that is a fan today, and had my dark ages right as I came into was like 99 2000. Star Wars was the Star Wars sets were kind of like the last sets that I had as a child, and then I came back into it probably it was 2019 I want to say
Oh, wow.
was the 20th anniversary Star Wars sets that brought me back in,
Mhm.
and it was specifically the Slave one. Um, that's
Oh,
that
great
was
set.
that kind of brought me back into it, and I remember my grandma wrote me a check for I think like $100 or something like that, and was like, "Get some, buy something for yourself." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna buy something that my grandma would buy for me. Like, what should that be?" And that's when I was at the store and saw the Slave One set, and I was like, "Well, this looks really interesting, like much more complex than what it was when in the 99 2000 era." And so then
Mhm.
that kind of got the ball rolling, and I was like, whoa, it's crazy how the things that are being built nowadays and the techniques and all of that. So that kind of kicked it off, and I think everyone else knows the slippery slope that you fall into, and all of a sudden you got 50 sets and you're like, what? You see
Yeah,
people with backlogs and you're like, how is that possible? How do you have a backlog?
yeah.
Well, you fall into it pretty quickly, right? So yeah. And then I started designing my own mocks right away. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I was really comfortable with that when I was a child and spent a lot of time doing that. And so that I kind of really fell into that. And my niche is Star Wars is my passion point. And so I was designing kind of 1/35th scale or minifigure scale Star Wars ships. So to kind
Oh,
of
cool.
accompany some of the things that haven't been done yet. So yeah, I did a Mandalorian N1. I think the instructions are still up on Rubricable, and did a U-wing. U-wing's my favorite ship, so there wasn't one that I was really particularly happy with. So I would kind of focus on things that may not had something at the time that fit what I wanted per se.
Mhm.
But um,
And now you work for Lego.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You have
Now
you have the
and
ultimate AFOL experience, the ultimate journey.
yeah, I think it was 2022. Yeah, it was December of 2022
Mhm.
when I was on paternity leave for my first son, and there was a job opening that came up. Didn't know that Bricklink was 15 minutes down the road from me, and came in for a lug meeting that was at the office here. And they were like, "Hey, we're starting up BDP, and we need some people for it." And it just kind of happened that I had project management experience and design experience and was doing my own instructions and models and such.
Mhm.
And so it kind of just was it fell pretty naturally into place. And was at the stage of my career where I could kind of make a step over and had the relevant experience. So yeah. And the kind of the rest is history. It was a lot of fun. And
Yeah, n
obviously to this day it's still I think I just celebrated 3 years. So
Mhm.
it's been quite the journey.
I I I can only imagine. So your favorite theme is Star Wars, and then your
Uh,
favorite set, is that still the Slave one, or is
Ooh.
there a new one?
I'm a bit biased because I'm of BDP,
Mhm.
obviously, and kind of leading this program. There's a set coming out in a couple of days from when this airs. I got to think about when the exact timing is. Final set images come out on the 5th of January for
This
Series
will
7.
air
Okay.
on the
So,
5th, so the 5th at, 5 AM Eastern Time.
yeah. So it's this set right up here.
There
This
we go.
is the privateer frigate Fortuna, um, designed by Brick Perfection. It is an absolutely incredible Lego model in all aspects of how he was able to create the shape of the hull. Like the
Mhm.
hull is not smooth in any direction, whether that be, kind of the outer shaping of the hull going up and down. It isn't straight at all. I mean, it's absolutely incredible how it's put together, and it's such a wonderful build. Um, that's probably my favorite build right now. Um, and maybe it's because I'm a little bit more on the mock side of the spectrum where,
Mhm.
I always talk about BDP in the sense of like BDP, there's like Lego designed sets, and then there's mocks over here, and BDP needs to be somewhere in the middle, right? And
Yeah.
this is as close to being as mock as you can be, but still being Lego quality in a sense where it's repeatable and you're like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool techniques." I think about it like in a lot of UCS, Star Wars sets where just some of the way that the infrastructure, the frame of the model is built out, and there's some really novel part usage in there,
Mhm.
that this model does that very well. Um, but yeah, otherwise I would say, yeah, it's for an official Lego set, it would probably be the AT-AT. The AT-AT was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
that's,
love that set.
that yeah, great choice.
Yeah.
And,
The legs are a little repetitive, but other than
I'm
that, once you're
sure.
past that, it's you can when you load it up with, I don't know, it's like 44, 40 storm
Yeah.
snow troopers, it's like, this is so
I think it's
cool. And the
44,
cutaway,
right?
like,
Yeah.
that is an awesome model where it kind of falls right into that perfect spectrum of it's UCS, but it's also minifigure-ish
Mhm.
scale, right? Where I guess not everything can be rightfully so. Star destroyers and such can. And the Millennium Falcon would be
That'll be
very
the
I guess
day,
the
right?
Millennium Falcon could be closer, but
The Falcon was, right? And
yeah. It's close,
my
yeah.
we did a episode on Lego scale too, because the minifigure is it's either a little bit wide if you use height, or it's a little bit short if you use
Yeah.
the width, right? So there's
It's the
no
width. Yeah, it's
perfect
definitely the
scale,
width.
right? Yeah. Yeah. Um, I've you mentioned, hey, Lego's a slippery slope. I think all AFOLs can feel that, but I've for the most part have kind of not stayed away from the Bricklink design program, but enjoyed the sets from a distance, right? And
Mhm.
there's some really good sets, but that glimpse I'm seeing of the set that will officially be revealed tomorrow, or today, I should say, the
Yeah,
fifth when this
yeah.
airs. Um, that looks good. I might not be able to sit on the sideline for that one, especially if it's a ship. So
I
you've sold me.
highly, highly recommend. It is an awesome build. It is so cool. Um, yeah. But I think a lot of our models are that way, where it's
Hmm.
like the techniques that the fan designers can use, and I think that's something that a lot of people really appreciate about BDP is, because we are catering to the highest skill fan, a part of the fan base in a sense, there are some techniques that we can do that don't necessarily need to be held back by like a 9
Hmm.
plus, right, rating. So, that the real strength of a Lego designer is making something that is very repeatable and can be done by, somebody that's picking up a set for the first time, or, the highest affinity of fans, but they all have to do that within, a set boundary. And like that is a real challenge in a sense. Where if anyone's ever designed a mock, you know how hard it is to be
Hmm.
like, you design something, you're like, this is beautiful, but is if you kind of get your big mitts on it, and it's gonna explode in a sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then also like designing it in a economical standpoint too,
Right.
right? Where you go to conventions and you see the models that are designed, it's like, and even BDP, like they're large models, right? To cram detail into a model, it's going to end up being a lot larger. And BDP is, we're averaging 2,500 elements per set across the five. That's a huge set in
Hmm.
any other theme, right? So, um, yeah, you're getting a lot of parts in there. So,
Yeah, I've you mentioned rebrickable. I've got a couple of instructions on rebrickable, and that's certainly something. Even just with that design process, that you're like, well, nobody's gonna buy instructions for a mock that you created if you've got
mhm.
a piece that was released in 1972 in one set and cost $75. Like,
Yep.
so yeah, it's I can only imagine that the scale that a Lego designer has to do that with, especially when you factor in also buildability. Is that
Mhm.
buildability? Is that a word?
Mhm.
Being able to, like you said, repetitively
Yeah.
build it. But let's dive in. We kind of talked a little bit about it, but um, what's kind of the difference between Bricklink Designer Program and Lego Ideas, right? Because they're both idea submissions,
Mhm.
not ideas in the brand idea submissions, but they're both fan design submissions.
Yeah. Yeah, so we both exist in kind of the user generated content space
Hmm.
of for the Lego group. And we work pretty closely together in that sense. But there are some little bit of differences, not that one program's better than the other. They're just catering to different spaces within the UGC market. And for BDP, that is, we were just talking about that, or you just hinted to, we have to use all elements that are currently in production, for example. So that is a big barrier in a sense of you have to work with elements that are currently in production and will remain in production through the calendar year that sets will be manufactured. So, for example, Series 7, Series 6, 7, and 8 are 2026 manufacture dates. In a sense, is that's when they're going to be produced. So the elements have to be remain in production through the end of that year, and then 9, 10, and 11 are 2027. So then the parts drop down. And then obviously over the course of the year, new elements are released, and then those can potentially be added to the palette. I think that's probably one of the biggest things is that you have to use the active elements. We can't go create new elements. So, for example, if there's no pirate torsos in the palette, then it's gonna you have to be really creative about what you're gonna do if you want to create a pirate set or classic space, or if you want to do, any other type of set, you're really limited to what exists. So it also kind of forces creativity in a
Hmm.
sense where it's restricting yourself, because when you have this huge when you have everything that's ever been produced at your disposal, you kind of don't know where to start, right? So it is a little bit helpful too in that sense where having that restriction will force you to get creative or come up with
Yeah.
some novel part usage and things like that, using elements in ways that maybe aren't typically used, or to there's a more efficient way, or kind of like a more fun way of doing something instead of just stacking elements the way you normally would to achieve
Hmm.
a color or a pattern that you need. Um, and then we don't do a lot of, so we don't have any intellectual property that is external in a sense. So that's another big thing. So it's basically original IP only. And that is in the sense that things that you're creating, obviously we have things like classic space and castle and pirate and those kind of things,
Yeah.
things that aren't in active production by the Lego group, if that makes sense, or it's like a recurring theme. So we stay away from like Friends and things that
So
have a
so if I
yearly
wanted
release.
to bring Nexo Knights back,
Yeah, you could
no.
totally do Nexo Knights or Rock Raiders or any Aquazone. Yeah, any of that stuff. It's all definitely it's there and available to use. There's a couple like Lego things that we're not, or like Lego trademark things that we're not allowed to
Okay.
do, and that's like you can't do a art mosaic of the Lego logo because that's trademarked, and we can't
Hmm.
purchase the design from you because we already own the design, if that makes sense. Um, the minifigure, so can't do brick built minifigures in a sense
Okay.
of like the
The
mega
upscaled.
figures that have
Yeah.
been, yeah, the upscaled minifigures. Can't do that, but you will see other things that are upscaled in the that are submitted,
Hmm.
and that's totally fine.
Huh.
There's 2 things we can't do. It's the minifigure and 2 by 4 brick. 2 by 4 brick, we also can't do as an upscaled. So that's the other
But like a
other
one by
trademark.
one brick,
But a
or
1 by
like
1, a 1 by 4, a 2 by 3, a 2 by 6, totally fine.
because there's a
A
lot
2
of
by 4
different
plate,
bricks.
totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
right?
What if I did 3 2x4 plates and stacked them together?
Yeah, you were flirting with it right there. The lawyer's gonna probably be like, yeah, I get that it's different, but it's brick built, so it really doesn't look different. It's not like
Yeah.
there's a tile where it has, like, the groove."
The lip. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've done a lot of building designing on Studio or Stud.io, or actually, I would love to know officially from somebody at Bricklink, is it Studio or is it Stud.io?
Eh,
How should we reference that?
we call it Studio, but, I mean, it was Stud.io for a while there and
Yeah.
whatnot, but this is also a great call out, as Studio, and this is another huge difference with BDP, is that all models are required to be submitted through Studio or Studio models, right? So we're
Hmm.
requiring digital building. Part of the reason for that is it's a lot more. accessible in a sense of having a large element library of physical elements is restrictive, especially with new elements as they come out. They're not readily available. So, and we require instructions for our models too. So, good little a little tangent here, but that is a huge portion of what BDP is. But it's something that we found from the 2021 Invitational of BDP. They were all Lego Ideas 10K club sets that were
Okay.
then pushed forward into
Mhm.
BDP, or sorry, that were rejected or not selected after getting 10,000 votes, and then we turned those into BDP models, and then what we found is that those models aren't designed to go into production, they're designed to be rebuilt
Mhm.
or redesigned in a sense. And so when we tried to bring them one to one into a production set, it was
Mm.
the build quality is
Challenging.
a lot more challenging. And so that's where you'll see like that's something one of the things we learned from that pilot of once it was ADP before the Lego Group owned Bricklink. And then once Lego Group purchased Bricklink, it was okay, how do we do all of this internally? And that was 2021 Invitational is kind of like the pilot. And there were 15 sets from that. And then we took all the learnings from that and then created it into the kind of the series program that is ongoing now. But it's like it's really important that that's big reason why we require instructions from the get-go is that it makes you think about how would somebody else build this model
Mhm.
so that you catch a lot of the things you're like, oh, this whole floor is floating. This can't be done. Right? Or
What
like, "This
that
isn't
never
attached
happens. What are you
properly, like,
talking
I need to
about?
be able to" Studio has some features in it, and for example, like the, stability checker, it don't use it as the gospel of, like, this is good or this is bad, but it is a good check to say, like, "Here some things might register as flagging red and that you shouldn't use it, but you can look at it and be like, "Yeah, no, it's connected. It's just a glitch in the software. It's not recognizing it correctly."
Mhm.
Or you can look at it and be like, "Oh, yeah, I completely missed that. Those aren't even connected." And then you're able to go from there. So I think there's a lot of real benefits to the studio application, especially
Yeah.
for, younger fans, people that are in small apartments, like living in Southern California, space is a premium, right? So
Mhm.
having having the space for a dedicated office or place to build your Lego bricks is not necessarily easy. If you're off at college or you're younger, you just maybe don't have as much disposable income. So studio is a good game changer for that in the sense it levels the playing field.
Well, and then they also have the official palette, right? The piece palette on there. You can
Yep.
actually hit it as a setting to start building off of because you mentioned it's an element, which is a color plus piece combination.
Yep.
So the 1x8 brick in sand green, for example.
Mhm.
Your eyebrows are perking up there. Notably from Green Grocer, right?
Yeah.
That's not in the palette, right? But the 1x8 is. So I think kind of what you're saying makes total sense. It really helps facilitate the design process because you don't want somebody sitting there with a manifest that they printed from Lego.com of all the
Mhm.
thousands of elements that are available in color and piece combinations.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I mean that's another beautiful thing of Studio is that it has the catalog tied into it directly, right? And it'll kind of give you a hint of is this a really rare part or is this readily available in the sense of, let's have a dollar sign or, one through $4 signs of like how rare a part is. And then,
Hmm.
it'll tell you kind of like the average part price of that on Bricklink. But yeah, that is helpful because otherwise you run into the 1x8 bricks in sand green. It'll be interesting to see, obviously how those filter out now that they're
Yeah.
going to be readily available again. But, for a while, those were really pricey parts. And you might design with it and be like, oh, it's available. And then you go and you're like, oh, crap. These
Oh,
things are 20
my
bucks a
mock
pop. Like,
is $2,000 for 100 pieces.
yeah. Or it'll be like, what was it? Like the sand blue 1x1 plate for a long time I want to say it was a
Hmm.
sand blue 1x1 plate. I think it was
I
sand blue.
think so.
And it was in another one of those old modulars or something like that, early modular models where it's like, "Oh, this is a crazy expensive part," where they were like $5 a piece or something. And then, you could easily design with it and then not think about it, and then, like, you get to the end, you gotta go you get your wanted list, and you're like, "Oh, no."
Oops. I think it was the Groot. the original rock, or I guess the only Rocket Raccoon Brickhead, has the horizontal clip plate in reddish brown, and it is
Oh,
the
yeah.
only time that came out, and that is like $14. And I was designing a bridge one time, and I used like I think 156 of them. And
You gotta
typically it's
use
like
a
a
dark
5 cent
brown,
piece.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? There was $14.59 per, and there's only like 200 available in the world. So
I made that mistake with, when I was building one of the first mocks, was the I was building it's more ESV or Mortsev. He did this big Nebulon B freighter,
okay.
UCS scale freighter, and it had a bunch of the 6.5 or 6.6 L bars, like the
Mm,
original, not the
yeah.
6 Ls that they are now. And they were in dark bluish gray, or sorry, light bluish gray. And that when those bars were available, there was like a really short production overlap from when they were light gray to light bluish gray. And I didn't, so at the time, didn't even know the difference between light gray and light bluish gray. And then also didn't realize that the 6.6 L bars and the 6 L bars were essentially the same thing if you're just using them for decoration on the outside of the model like that one does. And it's like those bars were $5 a piece compared to the
Oh,
other ones are like 5 cents a piece. It was like
yeah.
I bought a couple of them before I was like, "Wait, this doesn't
You're
make
like,
no
"What what
sense.
what
Why
when
are
am I
they
doing
so
this?"
expensive?"
Yeah.
And then I looked and I'm like, "Oh, yep,
So, I guess it makes total sense why you kinda start here then from a Bricklink design program standpoint. Have you, noticed any major constraints when going from that digital design process to the physical design? Do you have to redesign them from a Bricklink standpoint?
there's not a ton." I think people are getting well. A nice thing about the program is that people are kind of leveling up their design skills over the years, which is really fun to see. And that's one thing that we hope that fan designers get out of it, even if you are not selected as a finalist. We're having kind of direct communication with the model designers here
Mhm.
internally, and we're giving you feedback on your models and things that we see. Um, it's usually buildings with floors and floors not being supported properly. Like, that's probably one of the biggest things that we see a lot, where it's like, "Okay, we can't you can do this and it works, but it's not great." Like, having a really spongy floor when you're trying to put elements on it, that can be a
Yeah.
challenge. And you'll see a lot of really beautiful models, and if you look at the floors and it's like, "Oh, this floor is spanning 30 something studs," you're like, there's no support. There's no rigidity in that. Like, in order to get it, in order to have a span like that, you have to have a fairly robust or reinforced floor. And I think Art Factory was kind of innovative in the way that they did this floor structure in a sense where they took Technic bricks and scissored them together with pins in a sense. So they overlapped. And so it was 2 rows of Technic and it went the whole stretch. So you could get like 26 or 28 stud gap without
Mhm.
having a ton of flex in it. And then being strategic about how you put things on. Do you put things on the floor before you put the floor on, et cetera?
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, that's I think that and the one that every webinar I always mention this, and that is Technic or studs and Technic holes. Because Technic holes, the pin holes on Technic elements are not the same size as a stud. And
Okay.
so they actually like they fit, but it actually stresses the element, and so technically, internally, we're not allowed to do that because it's stressing the element and deforming it over time. So you can do one element in, um, or like these are the bane of my existence for BDP. This tile, the 2 by 2 tile.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
This is a technical.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's not
It's
an
on
anti-stud.
anti-stud?
No, no, it's
Huh.
not. So it's a technical, and it's meant really for to have axles and pins coming through it. So, that and there's a 2 by 2 plate with I call it the helicopter piece, but it's like it was originally designed as a hitch, a trailer hitch piece
Okay.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
70s or 80s. But in my childhood in the 90s, it was always the piece that I think it's 2 by 3, but it's really 2 by 2 stud pattern, and then it has a half circle on the side with a hole
Mhm.
through it. And it that element and the one I just showed you, that 2 by 2 round tile, they can actually accept, studs in the bottom from the bottom, you can put a stud in it, but in the top, you can't put a stud in it.
Hmm.
So there's some weird, kind of intricacies like that. But, growing up, that element was always used to hold a one by plate on for the tail boom of a helicopter.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what I remember that piece from. But it gets used every once in a while, but mostly the 2x2 round tile where people invert another tile onto it or another stud into it, and it's like, no, we can't do that. But
That's I
but it's
y
little
it's
stuff. It's so little,
yeah.
right?
It's
Where
it's the cleanup, right? The clean
it
you're on cleanup duty
100%.
a little bit, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
cleanup. Rarely do we run into something where it's like, this is gonna be a significant challenge and we can't do it. I think I've
Mhm.
I've brought this up on a past podcast. I think it was Brick Cross. Brick Cross is it was a backup finalist for series 1. Um, and we always kind of bring forward a handful of models that we will test build and do some work on them and kind of do the full review on them before we finalize the finalists. Um, and Brick Cross was one of those where the entire glass roof was all studs and technicals the whole way across. And so we are like, all right, this literally has to be completely redesigned. And so we provided that feedback to the fan designer, Marcos, and he resubmitted series 2 and it was the highest voted set in series 2, but he had fixed it. And so it was like, okay, now it works.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that one was series 2, right? It
Yeah.
officially
Series
yeah,
2.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of like one of the few times that we've had that where it was like, no, there's a major issue with this. You gotta fix this
Mhm.
and then, submit it again. But
It's you say that and I'm like, I'd never realized that, but I'm like, yeah, no, yeah, no, but it's a little bit of a weird connection when you put a stud into that
mhm.
round tile.
Yeah, and
So yeah,
you see it in Lego design sets,
yeah,
but the rule is that you can only have one element in a technical. So it can only be
hmm.
kinda like decorative. You can't have anything else hanging off of it because then it's starting to pull on it instead of it just kind of being there loose.
So just sitting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's also like the thin plants, the plant pieces that's like, I don't know, it has like 3 prongs on it. It's really thin material. It's used like plant stems, and you can
Yep.
put plant elements on that. Like, you could only have 1 element stacked on that. They don't want a whole bunch of things on it because it will slowly sag over time,
Hmm.
because it's not a really rigid piece.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Interesting.
bunch of little
So
things like that.
so one of the big aspects is the crowdsourcing, right? You said it was the
Mhm.
most voted. How does that work? What's that process like?
Yeah, so I think it kind of contrary to popular belief, it is 100% based on the voting in a sense. So we don't look at comments, we don't look at kind of social activity or anything like that. I think one of the perks of this program is that you don't really have to market your set. Like, that's not
Uh-huh.
something, I know that's not a strength of everyone, and some people don't have social media. And so because we have the kind of this limited time voting window where there's like 12 days or something like that where the voting is live, people are coming in and seeing all the models and they're randomly sorted every time. For each user that comes in, it randomly sorts them. So it's not like, hey, the first model named A is always going to be the first model that people see. It's always random for everyone.
Oh, interesting.
And then you can kind of filter by themes if it's something that, if there's a specific theme that you personally like. But it goes based off voting. So we see votes come in over the course of the those 12 days, and it's usually we see between 2 to 3 million votes come in, which is incredible. It's a lot of people telling us what they like and what they don't like, and then we will share a little bit of that feedback with fan designers should they ask, but we can't provide direct, like, this is how many votes you had, because very clearly, like, it becomes easy to game the system in a sense if the highest voted sets are the ones that we're going forward with and then kind of working down our way down the list, then that becomes a really important thing to keep close
Mhm.
to the vest for us. Um, but yeah, so what we'll do is we take, so I think I mentioned this earlier, 2,500 parts across the 5 models, and then we will take the highest voted set. So depending on what the highest voted set is, that has kind of like the first right of refusal in a sense of, um, as long as there's nothing coming down the pipeline, then that set can go forward. And if it's a 4,000 part set or a 2,500 part set, then that will block whatever else is below that in a sense of theme. So If the highest voted set is castle, everything behind that that's castle can't be selected. So it doesn't matter if 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all castle too. Doesn't matter. They're all skipped because they're
So it's
the
one
highest voted
castle
set.
set,
One castle set. Yep.
one ramen shop,
Yeah,
one boat. Yeah.
exactly. You're gonna have, and we also wanna try to keep it fairly balanced in the sense of, it would be nice to it's not just 5 buildings every series. Sometimes
Mhm.
it happens that way. Sometimes you have a series where there's more vehicles than you have other things, and that's, it's really just depends on what is submitted from a model standpoint and then what the fan community votes on, right? So, but it could end up being that 1, 5, 7, 12, and 24 are in total amount of votes are the models that we go forward with. So,
Okay.
um, it varies wildly from series to series, um, on what it will end up being, but it's pretty consistent in the sense that we try to make it so that, um, you have a good representation of multiple different themes and then different, part counts. So that's why we always say, like, the highest voted set, will always dictate what a series is going to look like. Because if the highest voted set is a mid-size set, 2,500 to 3,000 part sets, that series can be wildly different than if it's a 4,000 part set. So we'll almost always take the highest voted small set. So sub 900, 900 parts. If it's a little bit higher than that, we would take it too. It's whatever the highest voted, really sub 1,400 part set, is. Generally, we don't see a lot of sets between 1,400 and 2,000-ish parts. But if we do, I mean, that could also be there too. But we'll go down and say, okay, what's the highest voted small set? And then that will be selected. And then that lets us start moving into what our average needs to be. And so we can say, okay, go back up to the top of the list and then work our way down. Okay, here's a pirate set or here's a fantasy set. Okay, and
Mhm.
that's 2,600 parts. Okay, now we'll subtract that or add that to our average and then see, okay, oh, now we need to be 2,200-ish range. Okay, going down the list until you see something that's in that 2,200, maybe 2,300, and then, kind of fill it in. And then you get to the last spot and you might be like, oh, it needs to be 1,400 parts. Okay, well, then we go down the list and find where's our first 1,400 part set that is not,
It's
one
not a
of
castle.
now, yeah, that isn't something that's already been selected.
Yeah.
That's why I always say, like, there is strategy when you are submitting. First of all, 4,000 part set is by far the hardest. 3,500 plus. If you're submitting to 3,500 part plus, just know that you are making the path the most difficult for yourself in a sense.
Interesting.
Because not only are you competing against all other 3,500 plus sets, you're competing against the most popular themes and the highest detailed models from those themes. So, like a 4,000 part classic space set is very, very, very unlikely to outbeat a 4,000 part set for any other theme. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, you could design the most incredible thing, and that will be selected, right? Because that'll be the highest voted. But if you're designing something and you're just doing it to just kind of dip your toes in the water, I would say stay away from 3,500 plus because you're immediately jumping into the deep end of the pool where the most
I
competition is.
I'm thinking of the, is the Transylvania. It's right behind you, is it
Yep.
Adventure in Transylvania or something like
Yep.
that? That beautiful set. Like you said, I mean, this set was the one that, like, almost made me dive off the deep end in the designer program because I just never seen anything like it. Or, it
Mhm.
reminded me a little bit of Monster Fighters in a way, but yeah,
Yep.
4,000 pieces, right? So, I mean, it kind of rings true what you're saying. Like, that's a stunner of the set, though, right? So it kind of the most difficult route, but this is incredibly well executed, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the challenge though, is that like a lot of the time it's just it can be complete luck of the draw too, where like I was talking about, we need to fill that last spot and it's 1,400 parts. If you have a 1,600 part set, like you might be higher voted, you might be 20 slots higher, but it's too many parts.
Hmm.
So it doesn't mean that your set wasn't highly voted. It just means like sometimes, you flip a coin and sometimes it's heads, sometimes it's tails. And
Yeah.
didn't mean it was a bad coin flip. It just they went the other way. So that's why we've also kind of tried to make it so it's easier to resubmit as well, because sometimes it's just bad luck, right? Or the four models ahead of you that set the sizing, it didn't work out. Or, another model beat you by a little bit and it was the same theme. And, it's like this could do really well again, right? So
Yeah.
um or something from another theme just barely beats you out. Like Fortuna was that, where it was like for how many series it was resubmitted like 4 or 5 series, and it was right there, but because it was 4,000, it was like it was waiting for the set that was in front of it every time. It had like maybe 1 or 2 sets that were right there, and then finally it made it, right? So it was able to get through. But um yeah, it can always be a little bit of luck of the draw, but that's why we're trying to help, kind of make some changes to the program to help, one, clarify and let people know how this works, but then two, it's like you're putting a lot of time and effort into designing these models. We don't want you to then just go and abandon them, right?
Right. Right. And we've had one listener write in who submitted, and he shared a story of like working with the design team and just how positive it was, because it wasn't selected at the end of the day, but he was like, I mean, they spent hours with me talking through my model and giving me tips and
Mhm.
tricks and feedback, and I'm like, that's you just don't get that, from a lot of people these days in general, let alone a large company like Lego really supporting their fans like that. And I, kind of that's what the program's all about, right? It's about
Right.
engaging with
Yeah.
the communities, and
Mhm.
like you said, getting stronger and better builders too as time goes on, as kind of people engage with the program.
Mhm. And I mean, and it also, I mean, it makes the program stronger, right? Where if we can make everyone better builders at the end of the day, then it does provide value, right, to those that we can only select 5 finalists, but there might be 250, 300 people that submit. Like, how do we create value for all of those individuals as
Hmm.
well? Because you are putting a lot of time and effort into this, and I realize it's a hobby and it's escape for a lot of people, and it's fun. It's a passion point for them, right? But there is also a way where it's like we can still provide value to a lot of our users. So, we always try to go above and beyond in finding ways to talk to the fan community, to talk to the fan designers, to provide feedback in an open forum, because maybe other people are just want inspiration to start doing this. I know one of the biggest things is there's no shortage of fan designers, right? In the sense of, if you go to any convention, you can see there's plenty of talent and there's a lot of very talented designers out there. Studio sometimes is the hurdle, where they're only building physically and they don't build digitally, and going down the path of converting their model into a digital model in studio can sometimes be a bottleneck. But that's where it's like, okay, we want to do, we started doing office hours and we're doing studio tutorials and things like that, where it's how do we make that, less of a big step. Let's make those steps smaller so it's easier to go up the
Hmm.
ladder, per se. So
And so, if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like there's a target a number of pieces for the overall series, right? I
mhm,
think you said it was
2,500.
2,500. And then from that point on, you get the set selected and you kind of make a bell curve off of that, right? Or kind of curve it. Maybe it's not a bell curve, but curve the piece counts off of that, off of those that top submission, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on it depends on the models that are submitted, right? So you could, I mean, the standard, if we were to say, like, here's the standard format, what it would typically be, it'd be a 4,000 part set, an 800 part set, and a couple 2,500 part sets. And there you're like right in the middle, essentially.
Hmm.
That's kind of the prototypical structure. You might also have two 4,000 part sets, 2,500 ish part set, and then a 1,400 and an 800 part set. Um, you could have like Series 4, all the models are between 2,000 and 3,000 parts. So it really, it again, it really comes down to what do fans submit? Because I know a lot of people
Hmm.
will say like, "Oh, they don't select small models." And it's like, we can only select models that are submitted. So if like if people want to see
So
more
let's
small
start
models,
there.
let's see more small models. And I preach this in all of our webinars and fan events and where things where I'm talking is like, if you want to get into this, do a small model. Not only is it less time to develop, but there's not as much competition there, and we always have to select some. So, like, that's the place to be. Start there, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and no, think about think about what your model is designed to be, right? Because I think one of the biggest challenges that model designers have is they're used to designing mocks, and mocks don't have a part budget per se, right? So you could design something with 10,000 parts, and it could be the size of a 1,000 part model, and it doesn't matter because you designed it. It's one off for show, and it's supposed to be highly detailed, right? But translating that to something that is a little bit more commercial in the sense of this has to be manufactured. And my example is always a 4,000 part barn. If you design a 4,000 part barn, it better be a really cool barn, because at 10 cents per part, that's a $400 barn. You're talking about some really pricey IP sets in that price range, right? So what's so special about your $400 barn that people are going to buy it, right? And if you
Right.
don't wanna buy it, if you, the designer of the set, wouldn't buy it at $400, then not many people are gonna wanna buy it at $400. So
Right.
you gotta go back to the drawing board and say, "Okay, well, this probably should be a $150 to $200 set, so how do I design this to be in that range?" And so that's probably one of the number one feedback things that we provide to fan designers when they submit is, how do you downscale this to be in a size where people would be comfortable voting for it? Because subconsciously, people are looking at part count and then saying, 10 cents per part, this is ipso facto what you should think
Yeah.
it's gonna be, and they're subconsciously thinking about that when they're voting, and that might be the difference between a like and a love vote.
Right.
So, um, yeah.
Are there any other considerations for like color palette, part count distribution? You talked about the themes, right? Where it's like we get a castle theme,
Yep.
we're done with castle. Is there on Lego Masters, the judges they say the story, the color palette, right? Those are two things that commonly come up. Is that something you guys are looking at too?
No, no, we don't. I mean, it's very clearly like, I sometimes will say that this program's democratic to a fault, and that it's like the highest voted stuff is what goes forward. And that might not necessarily be what most people think they agree with, even though that's what the public's telling us they want. Um, we don't go off of those things, but those are the things that we provide a lot of feedback for when we're providing feedback on models, because that is something like the color palette that is used in a model, things that pop really well, that draws the eye when people are voting. That's going to draw the right, like a good
Hmm.
render. A doesn't mean you have to have a professional render, but putting your model on. I always say render your model on a transparent background so you can change different colors behind it and see what works the best, because a really
Hmm.
dark, moody image isn't always going to be the best because it gets muddled in the image. It's hard to see the actual set and see details of the set. So, those types of things like the render can have a really big impact on it, but it's a very small detail that's pretty easy to overlook. Um, Play features, this is something I preach a lot is like add play features, add novel part usage in the sense of like, I've never thought of having, this in there or that feature in a model before. Like it's really cool how they designed that and did that. Like that always will draw more attention, especially once you're, jockeying between, the five highest voted sets in a theme. Usually
Hmm.
those little things make a big difference in the sense of like
And
the
if it
a
gets you a
couple
vote, it gets
extra
you a vote,
votes here
right?
or there is
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
help you, right? So having a really cool play feature or a novel function with your model. Um, Avoid things that have already been done before, right? Like these are, I think there were a lot of people submitting like Line Night Castle sets. And it's like, there's already a Line Night Castle on store shelves. So what is different from this set that is going to be, it's going to draw people? Like it's still
Yeah.
going to vote very well, but it's not going to be enough to get to the top.
Yeah.
Right, so, I
Especially
think
for a competitive theme like castle too, right?
yeah, absolutely, but I mean, it's for all themes, right? In the sense of, if there's something that's out right now, like, maybe there's something if you design something that goes really well with it, Like, I think there was, Alchemy Shop is going to be the images will come out, tomorrow too for that, and it's yeah, I think a lot of the initial there was some initial feedback on it that were like, "Oh, this looks just like the medieval blacksmith set from LEGO Ideas," and it's like, that's probably why it did really well because now people know I have something I can display with my medieval blacksmith set,
Mhm.
right? So something that people are calling out
It
as, "Well, we think
complements
this
it.
is a pain point." It's like, no, that's actually the reason why a lot of people probably voted for it. Because what we do see a lot is people are like, "That's a really cool model, but what am I gonna do with this?" Because it's a one-off. Like, we saw that with Wild West sets kind of at the
Mhm.
very beginning where the general store from series 1, people were like, "This is a really cool set," but it's the only Wild West set and the only modern one at that, so it's kind of just its own thing, like and then now, we're 9 series later, there's been 4-ish Wild West kind of time period is scale
Yeah.
models, and so it's like you've got the gold mine, the general store, the Wild West train, and now the blacksmith shop in Series 9. So it's like, okay, now people are like, "Oh, this is cool. There's other things that can go along with it." So, now it's complementary, right? And so
Mhm.
that's maybe where something where like Siege Encampment in
Yeah, yeah,
Series
yeah.
4, like, that is literally in a set or yeah, it's literally right here.
Yep.
This set is people look at it and they're like, "Oh, there were way cooler castles that were designed, in that series," but it was like, "Yeah, but this goes with the Lion Knight's castle," and people were like, "Oh, that's really cool." Like,
Yeah.
so you have already people that have the castle and they're like, "Oh, this can go with that." That's that little bit extra that can get it to the top of the list, right? It doesn't mean that it's better design than maybe some of the other stuff, but it's like this is more relevant for the time
Mhm.
period, right? So, um, yeah. So I guess think that's probably something people overlook a little bit. That's why we try to provide that feedback.
And how do you mentioned the alchemy shop. How do
Mhm,
you manage, like there is some similarity there between the medieval blacksmith
mhm.
workshop, right, and the alchemy shop? How do you kind of where do you draw the line on stuff like that?
So that would be handled during the admission or where we're
Mhm.
approving models to go forward to voting. Now, we are not 100% perfect, there are things that slip through in a sense that maybe shouldn't have been approved, but, 97% of the time it's completely accurate, and we will look and say, "Okay, there's part of the reason is we have" so there's a 12-day submission period essentially for where you can submit your models, and that's advertised well in advance, so that way you have months to prepare for it, and sometimes it's just as simple as clicking resubmit because you submitted that model to the past series or the previous series. Um, and what we're doing with that is saying, okay, if this is too close, or for example, modulars, this is where we
Mhm.
see that probably the most is like this is too close to a modular style building. You got to change one of these two things or one of these three things to kind of help differentiate it more. And so we're providing that there's not only the full submission period, but then there's also a week in between when submission ends and when voting starts for people to make changes to make their models acceptable to move forward, right? So
Okay.
as long as your model is meeting the guidelines, then we approve it to go forward to voting, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll do a really in-depth check. But for something like the Alchemist shop, it's yeah, it's inspired by
Mhm.
the medieval blacksmith, but it's not a direct copy, right? Just like most pirate ships, like they're pirate ships, right? They're gonna look like other pirate
It's got
ships.
a haul and a sail.
Yeah, castles all kinda look like other castles in a sense. Um, and I think there is a there it is a skill to be able to say, I can take design inspiration from something and design something similar so that when they go on a shelf next to each other, they look like they're cohesive in the same
Sure.
universe, right?
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes people will stray away from that where it's like, actually, no, that's something that helps, right? In the sense of it is familiar. And so fans then therefore can kind of gravitate because it's comfortable or familiar to them.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that makes total sense. I got a couple more questions for you
yep.
here. Um, is there a time where you look at a project, right? Or is there a specific aspect that you look for in a project to be like, if there's things you're looking for as the lead designer, what are some of those things? Are you like looking for nice part usage? You mentioned play features, right? Stability.
Mhm.
It can sometimes be hard to see stability in images. So what are some kind of subtle things that you look for as you go through images to be like, this looks good?
I'm It's a good first image makes a big difference, right? Because it's kinda that first impression, and
Hmm.
because there are 400-ish plus models every series, that's a lot to go through, right? So, you need to have that great first impression. Um, I will generally if I'm looking through multiple images, then I'm looking through, okay, well, what are the features of this model? What makes this model unique from just being a very, um, you know, a good a good looking model, but it is just a statue, right? Like, what makes it even better than when you first look at it, go, that's really cool. Because I always think about like, if I was showing my friends something, they would go, oh, that's a really cool statue. That's a really cool building. But if you then go and show them specific features of it that make it do something even more fun, then it's like that's why it's done out of Lego. It's made out of Lego bricks,
Mm.
right? So that's always something that I'll look at or be like, okay, the designer had intention when they were designing this in a sense of like, this is what this would be really cool if it did this, right? Sometimes you stumble upon those things. Sometimes we stumble upon them when we're working on the model or, um, designers will say, oh, there was a limitation that they had. And then once they're selected as a finalist, it's like, yeah, I had this idea. I wasn't able to fully flesh it out. And then we will have a conversation internally and be like, okay, can we do it? Is this something we can do? We've got three brains working on this now instead of one. Maybe we can solve this.
Hmm.
And then, now series 4 plus, you're seeing where we're doing that. We're adding a little bit extra to the models. We're increasing minifigures and just kind of dialing that detail level up a little bit. So,
Sometimes it takes a fresh set of eyes, right, to just look at something and be like, you know, hey, this kid in the apartment's got a classic space T-shirt on. Maybe we should put a small little build for the Galaxy Explorer in the room or something like that.
yep, yep, and also too, I mean, it's sometimes it's as simple as like, hey, there's this new part coming out in 6 months,
Uh-huh.
and this will completely solve any of the issues. Like it solves this challenge you had over here, or it now allows us to take this in a completely different direction that we had before. Right, or you had a
Right.
limitation and now a new part's coming out, and now it's like, "Oh, there's this whole other way that we can go with this now." So,
Get the piece count down or, redesign part of it, make it more stable.
yep. Yeah, and
Are
it's
there
usually it's
any
like torsos. Torsos is a huge is probably a biggest challenge we have is that, like, torsos are kinda always coming in and out of the palette, and
Mhm.
and and there's generally new things coming out. So it's like, all of a sudden, a new torso coming out, like, for example, the fire ship, Privateer Frigate Fortuna was like torsos were a challenge for that set for quite a long time, and it just so happened that new torsos were coming out in the prize machine. It's like that are perfect for it.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
completely opened up the doors when we first started working with the fan designer for it. It was like, hey, good news. There's something coming in, 4 months. It's like, oh my God, that's perfect. Awesome.
We can get
So
rid of the police uniforms.
yeah, right. Like, yeah. But I think about it, like, back to the 2021 ADP and the 2021 Invitational, a lot of the torsos are just blank torsos.
Yeah,
They're just like
yeah.
solid red torso, solid blue torso. There wasn't we didn't have a lot of availability, so we've kind of been very fortunate that we've had a lot of really unique torsos available, over the last couple of years because it's the program can really live and die on what's available for us to use.
It's actually funny we spent, a part of the conversation talking about torsos because for me, when I've designed sets or, I shouldn't say sets, when I've designed mocks
Mhm,
or Lego idea submissions, minifigures is always the thing I get stuck on. Like I've done Lord of the Rings mocks and the hardest part with that is sourcing Lord of the Rings minifigures because they're always ridiculously expensive.
mhm.
But like I made a winter barn for Lego Ideas, and I was like, well, like, okay, I guess this guy will be inspired by me, and I would wear that, and this will be my wife, and this will be my daughter. And then
Mhm.
I did one for Valorant, and I made total custom minifigures, and I'm like, this is a drag. Like I got so far along in the process, and then I got to the point where you're putting minifigures together, and it's like it can be funny how much it can trip you up.
That's where I feel like that's the kind of the beauty of BDP though, is that like you are limited. You don't have the
Hmm.
endless palette of here's everything that's ever been produced, or I will make a part that has or a color variant of a part that has never been produced that way before.
Hmm.
Um, it is helpful that BDP is like, okay, you're restricted. Here
It
are all of the torsos that you have access to, and you got to figure out what works best, and then
yeah.
just leave it and be happy with it, right?
It's kind of a good inspiration starter, right?
Mhm.
For a project, just going through and like which one of these minifigures inspires you, because if you don't do this now, you'll get stuck with a pirate ship with policemen, and that's not going to fly.
It's definitely made me a lot better builder because now I have to get very creative about how I'm going to arrange things, how I'm gonna put them together. D Oh, this part isn't available, the reddish brown clip. This isn't available. Okay, if I go dark brown, how does this impact the model? Do I need to change things around? Is
Hmm.
this okay? Does it add more variation? Because, I feel like in the as a fan of Star Wars, everything is light bluish gray, dark bluish gray. It's like, okay, how do we inject a little bit of color to this?
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, this is forcing me to go a different direction, right? Because everything is not just available in monotone gray, right?
right.
But even, it's funny though, is we can see, but we have statistics on all the parts used in models. Number one most popular color, you can probably guess what it is.
Light bluish gray.
Yeah.
Medium lavender.
It's like, these are complete, like, this is everything across the spectrum from a design standpoint, and it's like, number 1 colors, light bluish gray, dark bluish gray, white, black, brown.
Hmm. Yeah,
So, yeah, you
I
almost have
it's
to purposely like, design color into it from the start in order to avoid the monotone palette.
hmm that bridge example I used with that reddish brown clip. I actually ended up using gold, and I was like, oh well, it's
Mm.
actually a gold plated, joint,
Yeah.
brass or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it injected a lot of color into it, and actually turned out, I think, better than if it was
Yeah.
just all
Yeah, absolutely.
monotone, reddish brown. So, well, I think we're kind of coming to a wrap here. Are there any other mistakes or parts of the process that seem to be challenging for fans?
Um the biggest thing we talked about some of the design related things, right? In the
Hmm.
sense of, assuming the mock level of building where you don't have to think about your part count. That's probably the number one um, misunderstanding or thing that we will try to teach from the fan, maybe kind of like the consumer, the voter type of thing is how does voting work? That's probably the biggest challenge we have is there's a lot of misunderstanding of like, oh, this model, this small model, there's no way it had more votes than this model that didn't get chosen. It's like, no, it didn't. And that's not we're not saying that it has more votes. We're just saying that that's the highest voted of that theme, right? And if 30 out of the top 50 models voted our castle, well, of course, all those models have more votes than these other ones, but we can't choose 5 castle models, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's probably the biggest thing there. And then I think, we have like the other side of it is like people just don't know what the program is. Are these official Lego sets? What are these using Lego elements? What's Bricklink? And that's where we're, at that point, it's like, okay, we're probably a little further away from the target audience that we are designing for, right? So, there's some fans being caught in the net that probably are, maybe not ready or know what this product is. So therefore, that's not really who we're targeting with this, right? We're targeting the fans that are looking for more, right? Or looking for something different. And then I always look at it as like, how do we cater to the highest affinity fans that aren't purchasing Lego sets anymore? Like they're just off designing their own sets. Like there was a point where I was like, I'm just buying I mean, I would buy Star Wars sets because I need the minifigures, but I was using the elements to make my own MOCs with, right? I'd build it once, learn techniques from the model, and then take it apart and use those elements for other things. Like, I think that's the big thing is, like, that's what this program's trying to do, right? We're trying to work with these high affinity fan designers and these, consumers that are looking for things that can accompany, other models that they're purchasing in a sense, or help build
S-
out their worlds.
So is that why you limit the production to 10,000 or?
No, it's there. So production's limited to 10,000 was the 2021 invitational. We're up
Oh, sorry.
to
Yeah, yeah.
so now we have kind of a floating. It was 30 for a while, and some sets were still selling out. It's more of that we produce to we have a production window that is set years ahead of time. So like right now I'll plan the 2028 production window.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, if I want to make changes, it's locked for the next couple of years, right? Um Our in order to make this program possible, we have here's our set production window. We'll do it as a one-off and that it's just done and it's not no longer in the pipeline. Because we also have to think about like when we're producing something, those elements need to stay in stock. They need to like what makes our product available or what makes it easy for us to do this program is that we are using product or elements that are already in active production, right? So you don't have to go and custom make this element just for one of our models, right? Um, there, so because of that, that affords us some extra flexibility in a sense where we can, we have a really fast development timeline where it's a year and 5 months from when the model is submitted to when it gets to customers' hands. That's extremely fast. You're used to only
'Cause I think
seeing the
Lego's twice
model
that, right?
revealed like 3 months max, maybe before it's released,
Mhm.
and then it's in store shelves. You're seeing ours a year and a half essentially.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
seems like, oh God, this is forever. And it's like in development terms, it's just lightning speed
Yeah.
for a Lego group in a sense. So um but yeah. So there's a lot of little like, kind of different things like that play into it. But it's important that we have our um we adhere to our process because we are really, really small in the grand scheme of all of the other things that the Lego group is doing. So, it's kind of like how do we not disrupt everything too much? Whereas like because we're doing everything kind of backwards for how everyone else is doing it in a sense,
Uh-huh.
and we are this kind of like one-off production run. So it's as long as the demand is there, like, we're trying to we want to make sure that there is enough product out there, right? Because I think for a while there was like if you weren't ordering castle sets within the first 2 or 3 hours, you
It was
missed it,
gone. Yeah.
right? And that's bad business for all parties involved in a sense. Yes, we have our production window and like that is not adjustable. And so we've made some changes to kind of the length of the crowdfunding period. So we have more notice to give to the production facility to make sure they have enough elements on hand. Because elements are produced completely independently of when the sets are manufactured, right? And they may be produced in a completely different part of the world because there's manufacturing all over the world. There's assembling facilities all over the world. That
Mhm.
is a whole like any other large company. Like I worked for McDonald's corporate before I came to the Lego group, and it's like McDonald's is people think of McDonald's as fast food company, but it's really an operations and supply chain company. And same with the Lego group. It's like people think about it as a toy company and it's not. It's like this is purely operations and supply chain. How do you manufacture something at, in millions of a quantity and do it
Yeah.
efficiently and get it there on time when it needs to be there? Like that is the part that gets very, very tricky over time. And so it's okay, how do we fit all of those things to make it work, right? Like you see a box at the end of the day and it's like, no, we got to make 30,000 of these. That's small scale for the Lego group standards, but it's still a lot of
It's
product, right? Like
massive.
if you
Yeah.
put that on
Yeah.
if you sold 30,000 of anything on Rebrickable, it'd be like the highest selling of anything ever by an extreme margin, in a sense.
Well,
So yeah,
g
the
in
scale
my
is still very
MBA,
big.
that, McDonald's, we did some case studies on them for specifically their supply chain,
Yeah.
and one of the kind of things I just remembered from it was, like, if McDonald's were to add blueberry pie to their menu. There wouldn't be enough blueberries in the world to support it.
Yeah.
That's how
No, that was
that's
the
how
one of the things
massive
that yeah.
McDonald's is.
I designed packaging for them for many years, and when we did, paper coffee cups, when we
Mhm.
switched from the paper wrapped styrofoam cup to the double wall paper cup, there were double wall paper cups that some companies had used at that time, but not billions. And to
Yeah,
scale from 0 to, I think it was like 6 or 7 billion cups a year. Like, it took 6 to 7 years because there's only one company that makes the production lines that make the double wall paper cups, right?
yeah.
And it's like, people would think, "Oh, you just go out and buy them." It's like,
Just go buy them.
well, you gotta actually plan years to, like, and then you gotta set up and trial and approve all those lines, and that takes
Yeah.
time. And yeah, so I think that's part of it where it's like when a company makes a decision, especially a company at scale, it's like it takes time because you got to go through and qualify and not only just get the infrastructure in place, right? Like takes time. There's a lot of planning.
I'll give you one more McDonald's story. We had the VP of supply chain in Asia talk
Mm.
at our school, and he was like, if it's on the menu, we're serving it.
Mhm.
And they had just opened a couple of stores in the Philippines, and he was like, we did not understand like how it wasn't the hamburger, it was like the chicken sandwich or something like that was the most popular item, and they're like, we did not have enough buns.
Mhm.
So he was like, we were in a situation where we were just buying plane tickets and checking bags full of buns from Australia over to the Philippines to make sure they had enough buns on it to support the menu.
Yeah.
It's like a check bag full of 20 cases of hamburger buns. So yeah, I can 30,000 is a large number when it comes to, especially in a year, right? Getting
Yeah.
those turned around and produced.
Yeah, I think it was there was another one too. Like there's so many interesting stories from McDonald's around like just the scale. Like the blueberry
Mhm.
one is one I share a lot where it's like, yeah, we have to tell farmers like a couple years out for crop rotation to be like, yeah, we need blueberries in 2028 because otherwise if the headlines are going to be torture, if all the headlines are like McDonald's bought every blueberry in the world, that's why you don't have blueberries right now.
Yeah.
um but
My
yeah,
11-month-old would be very sad if there was no more blueberries. Those are currently her favorite. So
absolutely. Blueberries have the toddler market cornered.
yeah, yes, they do. So I've got one fun question to end on here for you. Um, if budget, piece count, inventory, all the supply stuff we're talking about,
Mhm.
if it wasn't targeting 2,500 pieces, physics, techniques didn't matter, what dream set would you personally create? And it can have a license. It can be whatever you want.
I'm working on something right now. I wanna do a Starship Super Heavy booster, the whole stack with
Mhm.
the orbital launch mount and everything. I have half the booster done in a sense, and I figured out how to get 33 engines around the base of it using kind of the pearl dark gray beehive that I think was used on the
Okay.
SLS. Um, that's like kind of my it's gonna take me 2 years to just get it done because I think, like, the launch mount is gonna be a beast in the sense of, like,
Mhm.
the booster itself at the scale that I'm doing is, like, 4 feet tall. So it's gonna be
Wow.
absolutely
Wow.
massive. But, I'm hoping at one of the conventions in the next year or 2, it's like, "Okay." And it's all silver ink or the metallic silver,
Mhm.
to replicate the stainless steel. That's that's kinda my dream right now. So,
So if I'm at Brick World here in the next couple of years and I see a giant super
hopefully
heavy, I'll know whose
hopefully.
it
I think
is.
it'd be really cool, but again, I don't know. It's also one of those things where it's hard because like, the design keeps changing. So it's like,
Sure.
how do I just do this snapshot in time of like, it's this
The
one,
current one yeah.
not what it's gonna be 2 years from now. I don't know. It's
Or
It's
you
a challenge.
designed change into it, and then you're like, "You guys ripped this off of my Lego design. What's going on?"
Yeah, yeah, because that's these chain link fences that I use for the grid fins are really inspired you.
Yeah. Have you guys considered using, snakes as thrusters? Or
Make
or
really
or
good
silver
tubing every
beehives?
time, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if they have nice part usage. Actually, I hope not. I hope they're engineering specific parts for their spaceships.
I don't know, from what I've seen, it's some stuff's just off the shelf, and that's what makes it easier to just throw it up and be like, "If it blows up, it blows up. We'll figure it out. We'll see what failed and then go forward." Right?
HDX,
Completely
Home
different
Depot
way of doing
branded.
work, yeah. We're not in the business of just throw it out there, see what works. But
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all the insights, the information that you shared, the transparency with the process, and all of that. It was really great having you on, and thank you so much for taking the time. Listeners don't know this, but it's Sunday, and you're here, representing Lego and Bricklink, and so appreciate you kind of coming out on the weekend, and talking about your job and everything.
oh, no problem. Happy to do it, and I appreciate you providing the platform to do that. And it's good. It actually worked out really well. I have a hockey game in like an hour, so
Oh,
it's
perfect.
in the end where I play is literally a couple blocks away. So it actually works out well that it's like, oh, I'll just stop here on the way and then go off and do what I need to do. So
Well, good luck. Score a goal. Unless you're a goalie, then keep the goals out, and
still, it would still be cool if you were a goalie, right?
it'd be really cool. Yeah, yeah. But appreciate you coming on, and thanks.
Thank you. Talk again soon. Bye.
Bye. Brick mail. All right, so that was today's topic. Thank you again, Alex, for your insights, for hopping on the podcast, and really going over everything about the Bricklink Designer Program. Now, let's talk about some brick mail. First up here on brick mail, or our only brick mail this week, is from Jimmy, or Fabu Brick. He writes, "Hi guys. First of all, I started listening to your show this summer. I was looking for a Lego podcast to listen to and found this one, and I have become a big fan. As a child, playing with Lego was something I did with my brothers, and it's something I do with my brothers now. So I totally relate to you both and feel right at home listening to your conversations. I find myself regularly considering writing while listening to give my 2 cents on so many topics, especially when old sets to revive comes up, like the ways to reintroduce adventurers only to lose my and not my brothers. However, I was listening to the Overwatch episode today and someone wrote in asking about stop motion. I am a Lego stop motion animator at Fabu Bricks on YouTube and Instagram, and I would be happy to chat either on or off the show to give my perspective. You guys would like to, just putting that out there. And absolutely. We definitely will. He says, I was a lifelong Lego fan as a kid and got into the stop motion back then. Stop motion hobbies disappeared along with the Lego in my dark ages, sadly. And I picked it back up, Lego and stop motion, that is, about 3 years ago. And it's been a blast getting back into both. I find my perspective and use of Lego heavily impacts which set I buy. Some are only for collecting and some are also good for stop motion. I think that would be, this is me talking now, I think that would be really interesting to talk about how you make some of those selections, Jimmy. What to you, what makes a good stop motion set? Because something I've never really experienced or had to dealt, right? I've never looked at a set that way. All right, getting back to the mail. I think it also impacts what I'd like to see Lego make going forward. Anyways, if you want to chat, let me know. Look forward to the new episodes and have been listening back to the older and older episodes as it's become more and part of my routine. Well, first of all, yes. I don't think I'd respond to you yet because we were on a break, but we will get you on the show here, Jimmy. I think that'd be a really interesting topic, and we will work that into our schedule in the coming weeks or months here. But I'm really glad that it's become the show has become a regular part of your routine. Glad that you're enjoying it. And yeah, like I said, West or myself, we really do not have a ton of experience with stop motion. So I think it'd be really interesting to get you on here. I know for me, I think I joked about it on the podcast, but there's that episode of Parks and Recs where he spends all day doing the stop motion, and he's like, "Look," he's like, "Oh my gosh, all that work for 9 seconds," and that's I don't think I had the patience for it, but it's really cool when it's done. And I have a lot of respect for the people that do it. So it'd be certainly interesting to get your perspective and have you on the show. So, but glad to hear you're enjoying it. And thank you, of course, for writing in. And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you'd like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLsWelcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.